we bite it here. You were always a good customer.
Yeah.
Rick and Morty is still trying to reinvent itself 12 years after it started, and a bold series premiere has happily finally paid off. No one can dispute Rick and Morty's inventiveness, even though the show was criticized when Justin Roiland left because Season 7 was filled with risky bets that didn't all pay off. As the lowest-rated episode of Rick and Morty to date, Rise of the Numbericons, the movie, was the first to entirely sideline Rick. The franchise might have been discouraged from taking future chances as a result of the unsatisfactory reception, but this hasn't happened. Rather, Season 8 has returned with a bang, continuing to experiment with episode forms while presenting entertaining new plots. Yes, by bringing back beloved characters like Bird Person and Bird Daughter, the series has tried to please fans. To further highlight the effort to appeal to loyal viewers, Rick and Morty use the catchphrase "Wubba Luba Dub Dub" for the first time in years. The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly chose to investigate a whole new dynamic that the show hasn't previously committed to in its 12-year history, but Season 8 is still generating some series firsts. The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly focused on Rick and Morty, but not our versions. Up until now, Rick and Morty has never fully removed the focus from its main characters, even with its abundance of amazing supporting cast. Although Beth, Jerry, and Summer have been the main characters in many previous episodes, Rick and Morty are typically still heavily featured in their excursions. The sitcom has never, at least not until The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly, sidelined both of its primary characters for nearly the whole run. Similarly, Valkyric gave Rick his first real solo episode without Morty, after Season 7 did the opposite. The journey mostly centers on Homesteader Rick and Arcade Morty, while there are numerous other different versions of the characters that make an appearance throughout the episode, even though the original Rick and Morty from the show do make an appearance at the start and finish. Since the episode centers on Homesteader Rick exacting revenge on the Rick clones, who shot him while rescuing the captured Morty clones, he takes center stage. The main characters of the episode are Arcade Morty and himself, who, although not directly involved in the action, plays a pivotal role in the adventure's finale. Rick or Morty often have a significant supporting role in an episode that centers on someone like Summer. But in Season 8, Episode 3, both major characters were hardly present. Even without the main versions of Rick and Morty, the Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly was able to succeed despite the fact that this decision was clearly a huge bet in light of the negative reception Morty's solo episode garnered. Focusing on alternate versions of Rick and Morty's protagonists was a worthwhile gamble. Moving away from the primary versions of the characters had the potential to go horribly wrong, given how important Rick and Morty are to the show's popularity. Fortunately, The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly has been the most unusual episode of Season 8 so far. Even though people will always argue over their greatest experiences, Rick and Morty, Season 5's depiction of what happened to the Citadel after it was destroyed was incredibly, particularly from the viewpoint of those who lived in what was left of the famous site. Although the show's main characters could have enjoyed exploring the Citadel's ruins, it was much more to view this place from the perspective of the locals. The idea that Homesteader Rick would be the only Rick living in the Morty section of town was intriguing, but from Arcade Morty's perspective, who truly fears this trauma, watching the Rick clones exploit the Morty clones for benefit was far more thrilling. It was refreshing to see the parallels and discrepancies between Homesteader Rick, Arcade Morty, and the show's core protagonists. It also demonstrated that other iterations of the main characters are equally as fascinating as the original pair. Additionally, it increases the likelihood that Arcade Morty may make an appearance in the future. I hope Rick and Morty continue to take chances like this, especially because The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly is my personal favorite episode of Season 8 thus far.